I try to do the right thing all the time, like do the right thing to the people that you care about, right? But why try to do the right thing and be quote unquote a respectable member of the community when all that does is gets you kicked in the teeth? So I started inciting, and it kind of like snowballed from there. And then people figured out it was me. They're like, "Fuck, Orson, what's going on? Like, I thought you would never do this." And I'm like, "I'm just experimenting with a new play style." And guess what? I liked it. Simple as, you know. And now I don't care, and I do whatever the fuck I want. Yes, I'm Popbob of Japan.
Wait, so you're telling me one of the biggest SMP YouTube servers in Japan didn't have a whitelist and it didn't have any backups?
Nope, and we fucked it.
Jesus Christ, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, like, what is behind your hatred of them, like, to this day? Like, do you think they're bad for the server?
It's fine when they do it, but it's not okay when other people do it. You know, based when they do it, evil and worthy of vilification if other people do it.
Yeah. Can you explain that drama, actually, the whole Joey Coconut thing?
Joey, I will continue taking everything from him. And I'll say this to Joey personally. When he finds out the people that have betrayed him for very similar reasons that I have listed on this podcast, it is going to chill his soul. Absolutely chill his soul. And I'm looking forward to that day. Hopefully not soon, because we're having a lot of fun.
Hello everybody, it's me, DigMC, and welcome back to another episode of TheDigCast, episode 7 I believe, with special guest Orsond MC. Orsond, say hello.
Hello DigCast members. How's it going?
So Orsond, you seem to be quite the controversial figure in the 2B2T landscape. So why would you say you were so disliked by so many people on 2B2T?
Oh, to be honest, I have pissed a lot of people off. I guess like I love playing tricks, and it's kind of like why I joined this server in the first place. So, you know, like I think you can do a lot of things in life and on 2B2T, and it just depends on sort of how you go about it. And I guess I've probably gone a different path on 2B than I have in my real life. So,
so you're not a troller in real life?
Oh, no. I love trolling in real life. I think like, you know, I was recently I just went on vacation to the United States, and I actually met up with Hermetic Lock, and he is the same person like online as he is offline, but I feel like maybe I'm a more extreme version of my personality online. That makes sense.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think most people, their 2B life is kind of a reflection of their IRL life. But at the same time, you get some people, it's like, they're a complete, like, pacifist in real life. They're the nicest person ever. And then on 2B, they'll be, like, some edgy retard. So it's like, they have to... That's how they express their bad side, I guess.
Yeah. Have you ever met Slappin' Bad Kids?
No.
So super based dude, right? Super fun, and he's kind of like a retard when you play with him. Like, if you want to get your base griefed really quick or leaked to someone you don't like, you invite Slappin' to your base. But right. In real life, you know, he's a father. He's like got a good, like, you know, like a beautiful wife. You know, holds down a mortgage. Is like the nicest person, and his alter ego is like how you see him on TV. He's like pretty amazing. So I guess it depends what you want out of the game and out of the community, and I've kind of done it a few different ways. And I think probably like when I started on 2B2T, it was definitely a case of, you know, like I look back on some of the group chats and the old discords from like the Guardsman days, and I'm like, fuck man, like I was super cringe. Like I was really naive, and I tried to play the game and play nice with people, and eventually all of that changed, you know.
So when you say you were naive, would you say you were like too like larpy in the word? Do you think you were too kind of like a fit fag or sort of that kind of behaviour?
No, I mean like my 2B2T experience was really weird starting, because I went from like you know a basing for like, you know, for 2 weeks out at like, you know, 3 million or something on a highway. and then didn't play for a while, then started playing again, and within the week met Hermetic Lock, and then through that I met like in that like first week and a half, I probably met Fith, I met Popbob, I met Ox, I met, you know what I mean? Like I met like a lot of well-known people. So like my experience is a little bit warped because they were like immediately actual people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You instantly kind of got put into that circle.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that circle, but like I knew who they were and like who they were on Discord, and you could send them a message and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm just doing my shopping."
Well, and they knew who you were, I think, most importantly, which is not the same for most new fans.
Yeah. So I guess you know, and maybe like, you know, I know you want to probably talk a little bit about the Guardsmen, but yeah, like I had just reached out to Herm online. On 2B chat. I was kind of just talking in chat and I said hello to Herm, and we started DMing, and it turns out like he and I like have very like similar professional careers outside of the game, and we got chatting, got DMing, and sort of like at the time, and so we got on really well to start with, and you know, he was always like, you know, you interested in the Masons? And I was like, I actually thought the Masons was a PvP group. Like, that's how I knew I was. And like, I was like, I'm not really interested in PvP. And he's like, oh, okay, it's not really all about PvP. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then sort of at the time, you know, he was on the way out of the Masons, you know, with the whole like, you know, COVID-based grief and all of that kind of stuff. He started the Guardsmen, and he's like, hey, Orsond, come meet me at these random coords near spawn, and I'm going to initiate you into my new group. And I went, fuck yeah. And I killed myself at like, you know, 3 mil on the X or something like that. Traveled down thinking either this is going to be really fun or this guy is going to like murk me. You know what I mean? So yeah, and that's sort of like how the Guardsmen started. So like, that's where we are here, is at the homeland.
The original homeland.
The Guardsmen. The original homeland, which was like kind of incredible, but also like there was a whole lot of drama and context surrounding this that I had absolutely fucking no idea about.
You were just some naive little new player just coming along for it.
Yeah. And there was like huge, like years of history and friendships and betrayals and all that kind of stuff. And like what was happening in the background, I was like, cool, I'm just building a base and like having fun on 2B. Let's not get caught doing it. Tee. It was like, you know, Herm was out here. He left the Masons. People were fine. Masons came out here and built. And as soon as him and Deloaded and Fit, you know, as soon as they went and they griefed the COVID base and renamed it Don Fuhrer and all that drama, suddenly all of these Masons who were like in the Guardsmen had been like initiated in, just like left the Discord, didn't talk to Herm. And that was like pretty weird. And I just really didn't know what was going on at the time. And I guess like for me, like my sort of like awakening on 2BTT is like, I was talking to one of the Masons in the Discord I'll probably just leave their name out of it. And they're like, Clover Frost is Australian and she really hates you. And I'm like, who the fuck is Clover Frost? Right? And they're like, oh, like this Australian 2B2T player. Never fucking heard of this person. Yet this person hated me because I was friends with Herm and that we had started the Guardsmen and their base had got griefed by Herm. So like at the very beginning, there was sort of like this, I don't know, tension just by who you're sort of friends with and who you're related to, but you really don't know anything about the drama. So I kind of had a fairly low opinion about the SpawnMasons and certain like individuals within that group. And certainly that didn't improve as like Herm and I got to know each other more and I understood like what precisely had gone on. So it was really fun. And I have to say, like, I've met some of my favorite people that I still play with today through the Guardsmen. Of course, Herm Pepsi, Zetrax, even like Blackheart, all of those people like that were part of the early guardsmen were like really, really, really special. And we still talk to this day. I even have some of their phone numbers, and we text each other. It's kind of really casual. So, but yeah, I mean, like all good things do come to an end. I mean, we definitely were in a position in the way that sort of like Herm's a really good marketer. And the way that he sort of like declared that the SpawnMasons were dead and the Guardsman was the thing rising from the ashes of the Masons, like that really pissed off, the incumbents, right?
For sure, yeah.
And yeah, and there was the fit video, and then all these posts on the Reddit, and so it got like really wild. Like we had like a public Discord, at our Discord, and we decided one night him and I would just let everybody in, which was just like the biggest mistake, like into a guest channel. And like there was people like doxing each other, posting pornography, gore, like like it was just like a complete, like it was like hundreds of people in there. It was like an absolute shit show. And so we ended up like banning all of those people, and that had the effect of everyone thinking that they were individually banned.
Yeah,
and he was
pissing people off.
You can't be. Yeah, and it really pissed people off because they really, really wanted to get in. Like that happened with Silver Eyes. I think he's one of the newest members of the Masons now. Really pissed him off, and so he was sort of like trying to like get our coords and like trying to grief us. Yeah, at the same time like wanting to get back into the group or something, which he wasn't a member of. But so it was just like this really high intensity, high marketed environment. And what happens then is just like groups like BSB, groups like the Imperium, they see that as a target and they go, right, for clout, we're going to go after the group that's got the most attention at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like when things changed for me, right? Like I started, I remember like sitting in the Distinguished channel, which is like the Guardsmen's a flat ranked group, technically like how the Masons used to be, where there's just like a bunch of like elders of the group, and then there's like everyone else who has the same rank, right? And so it's like a first among equals thing, which I kind of really like. It's a nice way of playing, and it stops people from begging for roles and dick riding people to get those roles, and takes a lot of stuff out. And I just remember like sitting in there with like Sakuya, Herm, and the Dark Emperor, and I think UFO, and I think it was like the Guardsman, Homeland, the base that we're at the moment, got griefed, and we were trying to figure out who it was, and there was this whole like game of like who spoke to who, like what information went where, who was likely to leak, etc. And I'm like, is this like kind of like standard like Minecraft faction drama, like, or is this like abnormal? And they're like, no, this is like completely normal.
This is normal.
So that was like sort of my, and and so we were just being like targeted, and I probably like the one thing I really dislike Entropy's interview for reasons maybe we can go into later.
Sure.
But the one thing I did agree with him is like Herm can be very absent, right? So like the burden of organizing people and solving disputes and like, when are we going to have another base? Like, when are we going to do another event? That sort of at some point fell to me as Herm became interested and then disinterested, but he was always present, but just not like there day to day, right? So, having to sort of like deal with that drama over and over and over again, like with, the base has been grieved or this so-and-so has leaked, and is lying about it and having to figure that out, like that kind of became very wearing, I guess, particularly around some drama that happened where like a Don Fura base was like leaked into the Guardsman Discord, the coords by a drunk Dawn Fury member. And then all the Masons like went, oh, this is our revenge time on Deloaded, right? And they had sort of like, you know, they were trolling him. He probably deserved it, and usually that's fine. But like, it was happening in like, you know, the Guardsmen members channel, and everybody who wasn't involved in that drama was just like fucking sick of it. And so all those DMs were like in my inbox, Orsond, what are you going to do? And so like I had asked them, I'd asked them, hey, yeah, maybe he does deserve to be trolled, but can you just fucking do it somewhere else, like in every other fucking Discord you guys are in? And which they said no. Home didn't really step in to like enforce any rules, and so you know that caused a huge amount of problems. And so like for me, it was a bit of a pressure cooker because it was like, okay, I'm trying to keep this group alive because it's like people here that I like and I like playing with, and we like playing with each other. But at the same time, there are people within the group who feel like they're untouchable because they're friends with Home, right?
So it's just kind of that toxic dynamic then.
It was like incredibly toxic, and they were like really, really toxic about it. I mean, even I spoke to Totorak and I like about this issue, and he like admits that, you know, they were really toxic to me. And I was like, why did you do that? And they're like, well, you were just some new person that joined that was with like Herm's new group, didn't realize you were going to be here for 3 years. So, I guess joke's on them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, I mean, I think. So, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh, I guess for me, it just became like, why try to do the right thing all the time? Like, do the right thing to the people that you care about, right? But why try to do the right thing and be, quote unquote, a respectable member of the community when all that does is gets you kicked in the teeth? So I started inciting, and I started inciting people who were enemies of the Guardsmen. You know, they were the EOGs. And it kind of like snowballed from there, and then people figured out it was me. They're like, fuck, Orson, what's going on? Like, I thought you would never do this. And I'm like, I'm just experimenting with a new play style, and guess what? I liked it. Simple as, you know. and now I don't care, and I do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point what you just said with trying to be nice and pleasing everyone gets you kicked in the teeth, because like that exact same thing happened to me literally like 2 days ago. I mean, you said we kind of talk about the whole my situation with the SpawnMasons, so I guess now would be a good time to do that, because obviously I'm friends with this guy called Steampunk Jax, right? And obviously I'm in BSB, you know, just like 5C, one of the biggest griefing groups. And at the same time, I was a part of SkyMasons, right? After the negative entropy interview, I was like, hey, mind if I come out? It'll be cool. He was like, yeah. And that was fine, right? Cool. I like chilling with my BSB friends. We grief stuff sometimes, and cool. I like chilling with some other people in the SpawnMasons. They have some pretty cool people in there, some people that I respect. All fun and games. But then Steampunk Jax, this guy who was kind of well respected within Astralorder and Don Fior, turns out he's been leaking bases to BSB for the past like 6 months. And obviously loads of people in the Masons were like, cool, I appreciate you being neutral on the whole thing. But some other people were like, oh, you should have told us that he was an insider. Like, that goes against our interests or some bullshit.
Yeah,
and I'm like...
I have a good feeling about the person that would
so do I.
Against his interests. And he thinks very well of himself and speaks very sanctimoniously about it. So, I mean, that's really interesting, because what I find really telling, like, when I get to the core of like the SpawnMasons, right? Like, I think I might have told you this before. So obviously I'm Australian, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing that Australians are like completely allergic to is people who get above themselves, that like literally think that they're better than other people. Like, it is like it just like flicks a switch inside of us. So I don't know if it's the same with the Brits, but like in Australia, I think like we don't generally have this cultural attitude. So like when I see that, like that really pisses me off. So it's kind of interesting. Like, I feel like, you know, perhaps they thought that they were doing you a favor by like, rehabilitating you or something by like inviting you to their 2B2T SMP. I'm not entirely sure, but there is that sort of like, born to rule sort of like attitude with some of those members, and I think that eventually that's going to be their downfall.
It's just quite a small, like, sad, weak mindset of the fact that I should be betraying my some of the people in BSB are my IRL friends, right? I should be betraying them to save face with some other people on 2B instead of not benefiting either and not going against either. And the fact that I wouldn't betray
you didn't kowtow to them, right? Like, and that's what they want, right? Like, it's not about being friends with you, right? It's about collecting you.
The fact that I wouldn't betray my good friends to preserve myself in a Minecraft group means that I'm like not a good person to have. But I don't know. I see that as pretty counterintuitive. I think someone who would betray their IRL friends just for to be a part of a cool base with some cool people, then that's pretty shitty, right? So I don't know.
Well, but like that's literally like where there's certain people there that see they see other players doing things on the server, and they don't see them as like a person and a potential friend. They see them as an object that can be collected and added to the group of, it's a clout farming exercise. Like, it has nothing to do with who you are, Dig. It's got everything to do with who you are, and then now he associates with the SpawnMasons and welcome to the club. And now you're on our side. Yet they haven't really given anything in exchange.
And you have to burn all the bridges.
Your loyalty.
Yeah.
I mean, Herm would probably disagree, or like probably if he was listening, he'd be like DMing me and telling me to shut up, and not to get him involved. But it's kind of like, when they had the SpawnMason coup, and everyone agreed to go, like all the base members, agreed to go with Herm, and then Herm actually fucking did it. He pulled the trigger, and they didn't go with him. That's their friend. That's the person who started the whole thing. And they didn't go with him. And so it's like very telling behavior to me. And in the same way that like no con is very telling, because like while it's awesome and like Leisure, like he's a genius, he's like much better programmer than I am. They were at the time, stealing from their friends that weren't in the Masons. Happened all the time. Happened to Bluebird. You know what I mean? And sort of like this moral code about like, you don't. And this is the kind of bullshit that I got from Joey at the end of the Guardsman, right? Which was like, like I discovered he was leaking stuff out of the Guardsman. I went asked around. I didn't even know who the fuck he was. Really, he's leaking. I asked around. I was like, anyone got his base coords? Spoke to Jared. Jared's like, do what you will. And I sat on those things for ages. Joey and I became friends. I felt bad. I fessed up. This is also where doing the right thing never ever gets you anywhere, Dig. And then once the whole like Imps 2 stuff went down, he like doesn't want to fucking know me and thinks that I'm an awful person. Yet he thinks I'm an awful person for doing the exact same things that he was doing. The problem was it was against the SpawnMasons, who I am not aligned with. So it all depends on like who you're doing those things to, and sort of like what the mindset is and how much of a hypocrite you are. So.
Right, so we'll go on to, since we're talking about like your whole thing with the Masons, so like what's kind of behind your hatred for them? Like, sure, so obviously, I mean, from what you've already told me, it seems that throughout your time on 2B, they've always kind of been, in your eyes, a bad thing because they're going against your friend Herm. They're seen as, Cloverfrost was like, didn't like you, whatever. But like,
who the fuck is Cloverfrost?
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
no idea.
So like, what is behind your hatred of them? Like to this day, like, do you think they're bad for the server?
Do I think they're bad for the server? I think in some ways, like, there was like a recent drama, which I unfortunately lost some friends who were Masons that were part of it. Where, something not good happened and something very questionable happened. And the first response, and I'm not going to go into that because I don't think that it really needs to be aired, but like, if this was like happening, if you discovered that this thing is happening, like a friend of yours did this, you would probably be like pretty weirded out yourself. And the first sort of like, it was a friend and I questioning like what precisely happened and why did it happen. And a whole bunch of Masons joined in and said like either it didn't happen or they were sure if it did happen, nothing happened, right? And it sort of just turned into this thing where like they were not willing to question because it was their friend, like what had occurred, and it was quite a serious thing.
So can you go into what this was?
Someone met up with someone in the SpawnMasons met up with a miner from 2B2T and like went to their house.
Oh right, yeah, I have heard rumors about that. That's
and like no fucking comment, dude. I'm not even. It'd be nice if you clipped that out.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying not to like stir the pot. I'm just trying to use this as an example.
Well, I mean, it's just rumors,
and sort of like it's like what had happened, and I thank fuck nothing actually happened in the end. But the first reaction was to defend rather than to question. So, for example, we had Dan's films in the Fith Column as like as a contractor, and Dan's films got ratted, and it turned out that Dan's films had was not only a sex pest but was like collecting underage material or something, right? And it was like all in this like big zip file, and it was just like fuck. So what happened is that we said this is clearly not acceptable behavior, and this person is now gone. Right? So if you don't know precisely what's happened, but you know that it's happened, do you let the person stay in the group or do you let them go? And I feel like if we're talking about the SpawnMasons in the context of like, are they good for the server or are they bad for the server? I think like any concentration of power that self-regulates is a bad thing. So it's kind of gone beyond, like even somebody like, there was an argument in the Mason Discord that got leaked where someone was arguing that the age of consent should be lowered to 14, and everyone's like, what the fuck, dude? That person in my group would be gone, right? This is like an adult human being, right? Like an adult male arguing that it should be okay to fuck a child. So it's like, that's allowed. Because no one really wants to like upset the apple cart. No one wants to kind of break up the party. And I think that's wrong. So I have like I have a sort of, when I hear about those sorts of things, particularly on those like child issues, like that brings up I'm not going to like let that go. And I think people who know me or have dealt with me in the past like know that that's a trigger for me, and a personal one. So I think like largely, I mean, as a group, they have fun, they laugh for the most part, but it goes back to maybe thinking about like why we're on this server and why we joined. I joined, 2B2T to have like this anarchy experience where you get to do whatever you want to do with the people that you want to associate with, right? And the way that they've been treating the server, whether it be, the world border base, right? The end world border base, which Fith Column griefed, by the way, where they were gatekeeping who could come up there with the end portal exploit, friends of the Masons, people who were going to ride them to get there, whatever. And then streaming it on YouTube and saying, well, guys, you'd love to grief this. Why don't you?
I mean, I don't see that as a problem. I think that's fair enough. Like, you want to invite people you like to your own base.
No, that's fair enough. But it's sort of like at some point they're treating it like their own SMP, right? At some point they're treating it like their own SMP. So they've got SpawnMasons, the Sky Base, which you've obviously been to on a tulpa. And that's really not about playing on the server. Like that could happen on literally some other server. And
yeah, for sure,
morale,
that could be a
moral,
separate server.
you know what I mean? Yeah. It could be a separate server. And with the moral code that they have for people who associate with them or that they want to associate with, you know, they don't want griefers. They don't like want people who have independent thought. They don't, you know what I mean? Like they don't want that. They want someone. They want servitude, and they want to collect people. Like why even play 2B2T if you don't want the things that make it great, right? Which is the uncertainty, and they're taking the uncertainty out of the game.
So do you think they're trying too hard to add order to 2B2T?
Yeah, I probably would say so. And I guess like I don't hate them, but I feel it's like, you know, it's like the Fith Column's mission to bring disorder to where there's order, wherever it may be. You know, like we'll shut down the whole of, you know, end spawn for 2 or 3 weeks, killing Masons on their way through as they're trying to pearl up and teleport materials back to their world border base, and then we'll go there and grief it. And so if you don't like that kind of behavior, you're probably playing the wrong server.
Sure, but I mean, I kind of see that as the whole challenge, right? You're trying to bring order to 2B is a challenge in itself, and that's why it's kind of impressive what they're able to achieve. I don't really see it as like a bad thing, because it's hard. Like bringing order to a server like 2B is fucking difficult, and they've kind of been the best ones at doing it, and I think that's kind of fair game.
Yeah, I guess that's fine, but it's literally the coercion that goes into that is the thing that I don't like. Like people should be free to do whatever they want. Like in 5C, like someone's like, Orsond, I'm gonna go and grief this person that you're friends with. I'm like, well, thank you for telling me, because that's put me in a moral dilemma, but like, you fucking do you, right? Like
for sure,
like,
yeah. I wish they operated like that as well. That would be nice.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? And it's not like my actions, like, and this happened with the whole, you know, someone went to the miner, they went to the miner's house thing.
Allegedly.
Like, I wasn't even there for like, I was there for like 10 minutes in the VC, defending my friend Bezo, who was in the VC, who was like there was just some like false equivalences that the other person was making, and I was like, look, I think like he has a right to ask like what the hell happened, because I guess lots of people have been asking and had asked me if they knew that I was friendly with the people involved, and it turned out that person hadn't actually checked their facts. They just went on the auto defense mode, and then I went to work, came back, I was banned from that Discord, the pre-June Discord, and blocked by a bunch of people. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? And they're like, Bezo obviously stayed and probably said all sorts of things, as he usually does. God bless him for it. And then equated me with Bezo. So it's sort of like you get kind of, same again, association with Metaclock or association with Bezo automatically makes you a bad person, but it also means that their actions are your actions. And that's like a really weird moral code, in the same way that, you know, Deem Punk is like, you know, inciting a bunch of Astral and Don Fura bases because, you know, he sees that as dig. Because your friend Steampunk did this and he's now in BSB, you are now responsible for briefing me, right? And it's this like weird. It's like I really don't fucking understand that. Oh.
No, and I will. You know, right? I do want to say some of the people in that group are so. Ope, can you get out my camera? Thank you. Some of the people in that group are so nice, and they're some of the like coolest people like you can kind of talk to on 2B. It's just ruined by the few. Like, it
is ruined by the few, and it's also like it being ruined by the few is also like why Home left. Like they have that like private Discord where they were like trying to get rid of the people who are like trying to impose rules and regs and a moral code on things. And like, hey, there's just a bunch of people who like dicking around at spawn and having fun. So it's like it's look, definitely them being one of the like premier groups on 2B2T makes them a target. And if I run across a spawn mason base, you better be fucking sure I'm going to grief it. But it doesn't mean I hate them, and it doesn't mean I necessarily think they're wrong. I just don't agree with their moral code, and I'm sure that they would agree with, they would not like mine. But
that's 2B.
That's life, and that's
that's life. Yeah, for real. Okay, all right. Let's move on from the Masons now. I think we had a good conversation of that. So let's go on to your kind of thing with Imps too, because that was kind of one of the first things that that kind of made you go from sort of a slightly known player to a very well known player, right? Because you got a fitmc video, lucky you. So yeah, when and why did you kind of start searching for Imps 2? Like, how did you find out about its existence? And
yeah, I mean it's interesting. So definitely knew about the base. I mean, like I think every 2B player, even before Imps 2, like if you're a new player at around that time, you probably knew what Imps was. If you had at all read the wiki or knew your block. Yeah, exactly. It was like it used to be on the website and the banner for the Reddit and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a build that's like that. Christ the Redeemer is just associated with 2B2T so heavily. So I knew it existed, and I sort of like knew about or had met some of the players who were involved in it. And I guess what was interesting is I had heard jokes that some people had made in the Guardsmen and sort of like mentions of an Imps 2 as a joke here and there. Particularly like people taunting Jared in chat about there being this second base that was supposedly copied in. And I knew, like, I somehow figured out the way that like Ox or Bubba J was talking about one day in PC that it probably did exist. And I had kind of messaged and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this base exists and we should find it. And I think this is sort of, we had started the Fith Column by then. The Pepsi Secure and I, with Herm and a few other people and Fit and Alpha Computer, we had like started doing like Fith Column activities had sort of like begun. And I was like, we're going to like find that, like we should find that base. And Herm's like, dude, I know that it exists. Like I've spoken to people at that base and it 100% exists. And he was like, it's so weird that you bring this up right now because I started talking to Jared 2013, like 2 weeks ago, because he became aware that this base exists. And so he speaks to Jared and I get pulled into the GC and we had a bit of a voice call about it. And what Jared had found through his friendships with people in Nerds Inc. So he used to be very, very good friends with Frickin. And Frickin would often, which has been verified, often leak things after like Jared had left Nerds Inc. Would leak things to Jared or even while like, there's obviously like a clique within a group. If Jared wasn't included in stuff, he would like leak to Jared, like whatever Tristan and those guys were talking about. And basically they came up with sort of, a bit of an idea about like when it happened. So this like weekend, I believe, like where Tristan had the back door for a short amount of time and had copied it through. So I think that was through the website when they created that website that they were able to use to backdoor the actual server. And then there was this like blurry screenshot, and like Jebs probably guffawing right now. And there was this screenshot of like, it was like what looked to be like a WinRAR window with a bunch of region files in it, and it was like super fucking blurry. And that was it. That's all he had, and he just knew that it was like it had been offset in a certain way, and it probably wasn't on the same axis as where the first copy of the base, and it certainly wasn't on, you know, the same axis at the same position, because it would be like running on the highway. So, and that's sort of like what we had to go on, and I guess.
So sorry, the region files in that screenshot, the blurry ones, led directly, or did they lead to offset chords?
They led to a range. So from what we can figure out was that you could kind of tell. So like if you take a region file number, right, and you multiply it by you multiply it by 512.
Oh, 512. Yeah.
By 512. It will give you the coordinate of I think the bottom left-hand corner of like where the region starts. So you could tell like basically by like, even if it was blurry, by like really like by how wide the
how
characters
many digits
were,
it was, yeah.
how many digits are there, and so we sort of like worked out that like it's not going to be at like 1 million, because that's where like Imps was. It's going to be like somewhere between like 2 and 4 million, because if you added another digit, you'd end up. You know, if it's any more than that, then it wouldn't be 3 digits in the region file. Right. So that gave us some like early sort of indications, and so like we went out hunting around. We checked obviously the, you know, like what if they just moved it up, you know, the axis or whatever. So we checked a few places, and it was like obviously like we need more information, and so yeah, and look, you know, you've narrowed it down from like you know 32 million blocks to like a range of 4 million blocks, and you're like reasonably sure that that's where it's going to be. And so, you know, I was out like looking for more information. Like Herm was hitting up his contacts that sort of like knew about the base, trying to get more information, which we did get more, like how they traveled out there, like why there wouldn't be a chunk trail, all those sorts of things. And I had just dropped into like Fith and I maintain a friendship, and I had mentioned to him like, look, I think that, hey Fith, I don't know if you know about this, but this base exists, and this is like all the shit that Jared leaked and took out of context. And he's like, I have also heard about it. And I'm like, do you know where it is? And he is like, yes, I do know where it is. And he's like, but I'm not going to tell you, right? Like, that would have been really fucking easy. He's like, you're going to have to tell me. I will tell you if you're correct. Like, you know, if you know sort of like the range where it is and what quadrant it is, and you're like pretty close to that, I'll let you know that you're on the right track. Right. So I was like, okay, it's between 1 and 4 million, and it's on the Posneg. And he's like, absolutely fucking correct. And then like, right?
So that's where the whole rumor that you were given chords directly by fitmc through a video comes from. So you can kind of say that's not true.
It's not true. It's not true. Like there was actual work that had to go in. Yeah. So we had this like spreadsheet, right, where we had basically did it's like a sort. So we had said, okay, we know that if we travel up in sort of straight lines, like sort of from certain points on the negative, on that Posneg axis, at some point we'll probably intersect with Imps, because it's like 5,500 blocks wide.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it?
Like it's fucking huge, right? It's fucking huge. And I'll dig up for you if you want some of the screenshots that I took when I found Imps, because it was like I almost missed it.
Sure, I'll put those.
So we're walking up and down. Yeah, so we're like walking up and down, and we're traveling out to these points, and we're like not getting anywhere. And I was like, look, you know, to like how, like we kind of like went back to like how we thought that Tristan might have copied it, and there was this rumor that like he didn't like. It's a lot of region files to like copy manually and change all the numbers. Like you would have had to like write a script, a computer program to like take the regions, transform the coordinates, and then
Mm.
you know, you upload them onto the server, and then they're like in the world, right? They're regions that you can load with real chunks in them, etc. And we knew that they had been copied, and they had been copied with a script. So I think Imps turned out to be something like they took like you multiply the x and then you by 2, and then you multiply the z by 1.5, which seems like a really dumb, like it would be the perfect way to take something that was at 1 million, and all you had to do is change a sign and multiply it by something simple, and then suddenly it would be off axis at 2 million, like 1.5 million or whatever it was. So, and so there are a few other challenges with precisely with figuring it out, because we knew it had been copied, but we hadn't really cottoned on to the fact that it was actually we thought that they had been more tricky in the way that they had Tristan had copied it, and it actually turned out to be a lot more simple. And so I probably asked Fith, because there were a lot of places we had to check. I probably asked him after we knew that obviously we could ask him, but we couldn't ask him too much, right? So I think we asked him twice more to just confirm something, and it was we know that it's probably not here because that's what our math is telling us, and it's probably not here. And he confirmed it, and then was no more, right? You're either going to find it or you're not going to find it. And I just went walking one day, it was actually in a VC with Crowbar, because we were building with Joey Coconut and Turban Whitehaven 2, which was a really cool base. And I just started walking, and I was AFK sort of walking just with Baritone walking up, and I was doing some actual IRL work on the computer, and I looked, tabbed out, looked at the screen, and all of a sudden my player had hit this chunk border, I was on the land, and then there was just ocean on the other side, and I was this is fucking weird, right? Where are we? And so Baritone's trying to get me across the ocean, and I stop Baritone, and I just flew with a light track.
Wait, sorry, can I just say, why were you baritoning in the overworld?
Because we know when Imps got copied, they didn't copy their nether chunks, because there used to be at the original Imps a huge nether portal, and allegedly they didn't open up any nether portals, so we weren't likely to find any chunk trails in the nether. And so yeah, we had to walk overworld parts of it to actually find this fucking thing, because there was just no evidence that in the nether that it was going to be there.
Yeah. But walking overworld, Baritone overworld goes max 20k blocks an hour, right?
We'd been working on it for 3 months at that point. Jared and I had, every day I got in the car, because I had to commute for an hour, I would call Jared, and he's on the East Coast, and Jared and I would literally argue about, we would just rehash the facts or re-go over the math, or whatever it was that we had a problem with, or go over this rumor, or this person is obviously lying to us, and is that true? Does that, you know what I mean? It was a real...
Did the base members know you were looking for it?
So eventually, so I was friends with Ox, and I suspected he was there, and Jared suggested that I call Ox at one point to let him know as a courtesy that I was on the way, and Ox didn't believe me. I sent him the spreadsheet, and I was it's going to be one of these, and apparently him and Baba J looked over it, and they're no, definitely not, but they didn't see the part of the sheet where I thought it was in a... They thought it was in a different... I had a different quadrant, and I was searching in a completely different place. And so I was to Ox, I was Ox is so what are you going to do when you get there, right? And I was well, you could just invite us, and then we can base there. But if you don't, then, and we turn up, it's fair game. And that's not even their base anyway, right? It's usually Optopia and Imperator's base, it's nothing really to do with them. they found it as well. So, and I get back to that bit in a moment, but when I flew around, and then I was like, fuck, I know these builds. Like, this is the German town, like on the outskirts of like, on the outskirts of Imps. I've been here on the archive a few times before, and I just called Herm, and I'm like, dude, we've got it. And
that must have felt so good.
it was just unbelievable, because like Herm would just like join these like really schizo VCs between Jared and I for like maybe 10 minutes in the morning, my time in the morning, and then he'd drop off, and he was just like, oh, Jared and Orsond are just being schizo and they're never ever going to find it.
Yeah.
And we found it. And so that was pretty cool. And so like I was streaming, and I flew up to the Jesus statue. And as soon as I got to the Jesus statue, like my client crashed. And then we were like, fuck, have they set up like a client crasher or something
Chunk
like
van,
that
yeah.
at the statue? Yeah, a chunk van or something. At the thing, and it was actually just future beta being scuffed that week, and everything was fine. So yeah, they definitely the thing that really gave us away that we were at Imps is that Jared kind of got ahead of himself, because like Imps had probably the most items. I think the rumor is that Nerds Inc. have been stealing stuff with no comm, and like Imps 2 is like one of the places where they were like storing the items that they stole.
Yeah.
And there were probably more items there than you could ever use. Like, it was a huge amount of items, which we blew them up. So Herm and I wanted to steal those for guardsmen, but Jared had like gone up to the Imp statue when he got there and like left a sign with his name on the base. And I had been traveling on Mail You, which was one of Jared's alts, which was the original account he griefed the first Imps on.
Oh.
And so I think it was, Lamp, who was building at the base, is like building up north of the base, not in the historical center of it. He saw those accounts on, and like saw Jared was on, saw that Mail You was on, and thought that was something was up. And so he had traveled. He just like coincidentally, so he went to go check out the center of the base, and then saw that like Jared had the sign there, and that's when like everything went to shit. Like that's when we found out they knew that we were there. So at that point, we just said, right, we are sitting here until this thing is burnt to the ground. There was like something like a 15-hour grief end to end. It was a lot. Like they say, like I've seen some obviously some YouTube videos of Sky, and it's a beautiful looking base, right? Imps builds were like not that great, but there was a fuckload of them. Like it was huge,
yeah,
huge, right? And it was just like, yeah, it was a lot to blow up, and so we had to blow up all those items. And I know a couple of friends of mine are collectors, and they're just like, Orson, what did you do? What did you do? But apparently, like, apparently the Masons and the few, obviously the Nerds Inc. guys that were there had already stolen all the collectibles years ago, and they had been moved off. But like the vast like item wealth was still there. So.
Yeah, the stash.
So the interesting thing was, right, and I think this was like part of the things that upset people was like, obviously, like I was friends with Ox. He didn't want the base griefed. He felt like I had been friends with him from like day one or something to like find this base, which is not precisely true. Like we were friends, and then like I wanted to find this legendary base. Like we used to we joked, Jared, Herm, and I joke. When we had griefed this base, literally the Minecraft credits would like roll. Like, and that's the end of 2v2t for us. Like literally, like what else is there to do? And so it was just like yeah.
I mean, you said it was
when
we were talking the other day, you said it was like a massive moment for some of these like 2015 players, because it kind of marked the end to Tristan's fucking backdoor fuckery.
Yeah, I mean, they're like not really fond of him at all. Basically, we had like players who hadn't like logged in 5 or 6 years join just to watch Tristan get cucked, and were like they were happy for it.
There's something
Like
poetic about that.
Yeah, I've got a 15-hour recording of that, like of them discussing it, how they hate Tristan. So like it's like as we were griefing it, and so it was a pretty big moment for the old players, because it was kind of like a chapter, like that backdoor, like, you know, Fit's not LARPing or like dramatizing it. It almost killed the server. Like there was nobody on. No one wanted to play anymore.
For sure, yeah.
Because they took, and this goes to what I was saying before, like they were all there. Like if you want to know what the old player mentality is like they get to do whatever they want and however they want to do it, right? And what Nerds Inc. had taken out of the server at that time was like people's ability to play the game the way that they would play it, because nerds had already won the game. Like there was no way to play it anymore because they controlled it. In the same way that like I feel that the Masons control some of the social aspects of this server, and I find that that's limiting and it's negative in a lot of ways. Like you get blamed for the actions of somebody you're friends with, rather than for what your deeds are and your deeds and your motives. You get kind of like you're in that bucket. So it comes back to like, yeah, for me, like why, and I speak to a lot of these old players now that they haven't logged in a while, and some of them have become good friends, and and they have that attitude that they miss the days when it used to be like that Wild West, and they feel like
that's been lost for sure in the recent years.
Yeah, for sure, and I think there's nothing wrong with like to bring that back. Well, the interesting thing is like the dynamics of Nerds Inc. Because you can kind of think externally that they're like this like unified group of people, that they're like really chummy and they're really friendly. But Jared used to say, instead of Nerds Inc., they should be called Backstabbing. And I'll give you an example. So that screenshot, right, was of the region files. That screenshot was obviously like Tristan backstabbing Housemaster with the website and creating the back door, right? And then Ox screen sharing, like shadow playing that off of Tristan's like VC, who then leaked that backstab, and then backstabbed Tristan, and then freaking backstabbed Ox, who he leaked it to, who he then leaked to Jared. So it was just this like Conga chain, like human centipede of backstabbing. And from what I've heard, like that backstabbing has happened and is happening. I know it's still happening to this day. So it's kind of weird in that way, that you think of these people as like this homogenous, like in a group that are all together, but like even they have their like differences of opinion, and there's cliques within the group. So Jared, I think, was like very good at like exploiting those weaknesses in that group, and I think it's kind of interesting. So I think like definitely like my friendship that I lost with Ox, I never went into that thinking I'm going to fuck up my friendship with Ox, but obviously I did some things there that he felt was a betrayal, and he is right to feel that. So I guess like, you always, if you're going to do something, you always have to live with the consequences, like even on 2B2T.
100%, yeah.
And why not, like, don't sit around and be a sad sack about it, like, be proud of it. You did something that other players couldn't have done and now cannot do. And that's exciting, in the same way that, like, Ox almost got kicked out at the SpawnMasons and lost all his SpawnMason friends because he used the auth exploit to log into all their accounts and dump their e-chests.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like literally they stole from everybody on the server, including their friends, for 3 years. So it's like don't give me don't give me SpawnMason morality. Give me like actual people morality. You know, like it's a fine. I guess like that's been my biggest problem. Sorry to like bring this up again,
No,
but
that's
I
okay.
think I kind of want to get that out. But it's kind of like it's fine when they do it, but it's not okay when other people do it. You know,
Mm.
based when they do it, evil and worthy of vilification if other
Backstabby.
people
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, the Ox example is
So
good in that regard because, like, he fucked over them. You know, he literally went directly and attacked some of the members by, you know, dumping their e-chest. But since he provides value to the
griefing
Masons,
their
they can't kick him out, right?
yeah, and griefing their basis. Well, that's interesting in the original. You know, I just want to say Summer Melon was an inside job. fitmc, Alpha Computer are innocent.
Isn't that
Um,
confirmed?
so
Like, wait, I can't even remember
no,
that whole
definitely,
bullshit.
definitely. I'm just going to leave it at that. Definitely
Okay.
was an inside job, and
Okay.
and things that I've heard would chill your soul, Dig, chill your soul. Um, but like, what was kind of interesting, and I was talking about like, you know, they were trying to collect you, Dig, and they couldn't collect you, right? They couldn't control you, so they couldn't collect you. The same thing happened with Fit and Alpha Computer, right? Fit and Alpha basically used like the excuse of like Rocket Town that Fit and Alpha's base being blown up by some associate of the Masons to go and dumpster Summer Melon, right? And they killed Crowbar, and there was this big internal drama. And like what had happened is that they decided that they were going to kick both of them out, and then there was this big meeting and a discussion that resulted in Alpha Computer being expelled from the Masons, but Fit stayed. And you can have a guess why Fit stayed. And so Fit told them to go fuck themselves and left. And you don't get many,
That's a pretty
you know,
Chad move.
uh, it's a fucking dude. The guy is legitimately a super chat. Like he's fucking awesome. And he was like, "That's my friend. Like that's my friend. You're only keeping me here for clout. Fuck you. I'll do what I fucking want." Right? And that's the old player. That's the old fag mentality. Right? Um. So I guess that's what I'm kind of getting at is like you do like by going and griefing Summer Melon, they were doing whatever they wanted to do, and they were happy to wear the consequences. You know what I mean? And for their actions. I just don't feel like I feel like now that you can be blamed for things that you didn't do, or because of you're associating with certain people. I feel like that's a poor moral code to have, particularly when the same people who are criticizing you for doing those things are literally doing those things like right now. Like even if you were guesting in the Masons dig and someone in the Masons didn't like you and they blew up a BSB base, I guarantee you nothing would be done about it.
Oh, of course. Well, yeah, I mean,
Right?
because I'm a guest. That guests don't have privileges. That's fine.
Oh no, like it would be, yeah, but
That's
it would be like
understandable.
yeah. Well, well, is it like they want to be friends with you? Like it's the same thing, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say
It's
that should still
attributable.
be frowned upon. You know, yeah, for sure.
It should be still frowned upon, but it's not. So I guess like Imps was sort of like was an interesting thing. I guess I haven't touched on the Jared thing. I'll do that real quickly. So I had no life trying to find Imps, Jared, for a really long time, and I needed to catch up on my work. So I was like working like 12-hour days, and
Jesus.
like it's like at that time I was like had a physical. I was like on a kind of 3 year secondment from my usual career, and I was like doing some like physical work. So it was like middle of fucking summer. It was hot, and I was exhausted like every day, like in commuting an hour and a bit in summer every day, 2 hours there and back. And Jared wanted this video that I had recorded of the whole Imps grief, right? And I had found out that like when I reviewed the footage before I sent it to him, that like I was there for 15 hours, so it had like all my fucking docs in it and like messages from my partner, my
Right.
mum.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It had like at one point must have had my email up while I was like waiting through queue or something, and I was like, dude, I have to actually go through all of this footage and edit it out, and before I give it to anybody. So it's sitting there like sort of a third edited or something at the moment. And Jared thought that I was not got schizo paranoid and thought I wasn't going to give him the footage, and I was trying to fuck him out of it. So I came home to everyone mad at me and like all these conversations like on Reddit. You know what I mean? Like it was like, you know, nuclear fire.
People thought you betrayed Jared, basically.
They painted it in a way that like Jared had painted it in a way that like I was a fraud.
You were sneaky, yeah.
And I had been sneaky and like I betrayed everybody. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, how on the more positive side from that drama, how did it feel going from like a slightly known player, you know, guy in 5C and guardsman, to kind of a very known player? You know, Fit gave you the title of like the best base hunter or some bullshit for griefing Imps too. How was that?
That title definitely goes to Courier 6. Like that guy is a legend.
Oh my god, yeah.
He was like honestly, I'd love to do like some shenanigans with Courier one day. You know, it's, I guess like for me, it's like I'm just happy that I'm having fun, to be honest. And like it was kind of a bit weird because like now, like if I hop into chat, people will be like, "Oh, hi, and it's like it's kind of like really weird.
Yeah.
I think the Copenheimer thing was the thing that really, and the Fith Column was the thing that probably did more for my 2B notoriety than Imps. I think it was like Imps was like definitely kind of, you know, I became a member of, you know, a cast member of the 2B2T anime series, you know, but it's sort of got a life of its own now.
So what kind of response did you get from the community? Because did you get like a lot of shit for going out there? Like, did you get a lot of cope from like the builders about griefing the base?
Fair amount of it. So, okay, so this is a really horrible thing that we did. So I guess like there was a lot of people upset, particularly Offtopia, and I will add this screenshot because it is super funny, and I'll send it to you later and include it in the video. But like Offtopia was like super mad, and I definitely was like wanting to bait him and get a reaction out of him. And so he's apparently like, I had heard recently that he's like really paranoid that like I'm out to get him or something like 2 years on, which I think is like pretty fucking hilarious, right?
Schizo,
yeah, it's schizo. Sorry, there's like lava everywhere here. I don't know what people are doing.
Fuck knows.
And a pig. Yeah.
Don't question it.
Don't question it.
Jesus Christ! I just went in. Right, can you not burn shit down, Oddpate? Oh my god, you guys are so retarded. Holy fuck!
No, they're actually griefing this. They're actually grief. Well, it's, you know, you've got like Fith Column members here. They can't help themselves. They're on a creative server. You're lucky this isn't like bombed to bedrock by now. You really are. So what? Sorry, what were we talking about? Like
the cope from like Offtopia and that.
Yeah, so the quote, like, yeah, he kind of thinks that I'm out to get him. I mean, like, when we started doing stuff on 2B2T, you know, people thought immediately, like, we blew up all those Joey bases the first time. People thought that I had, like, you know, started working with Jared again, and, like, we're getting a bit schizo about that. I guess, like, there was, like, Nerds Inc. were pretty silent on it, and I think they don't generally comment what the hell is going on.
Don't question it.
I'm not questioning it.
Oh my god.
I know. I just want that like thing gone, whatever it is, the pig. Oh my god, it's like
get rid of the child.
Get rid. So yeah, they didn't really react, but there was certainly Masons who were at that base who had been invited by Nerdsing people that were like, no, I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy about it. But I would say that, like, apart from that, the reaction was pretty good. I mean, the bad thing was I literally took a break for a month because, like, I couldn't, like, log on to Discord, like, and be online without people messaging me about it and without being, like, yelled at by Masons, like, why are you back on the server? Like, you would be better off, like, you know, leaving for 6 months and starting a new identity. Blah, 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 blah. They were really, really
So
cross
it's
about
what?
the
So
whole
they
thing.
thought that you were that hated that you should just quit. It's not
Yeah,
worth
they thought
playing.
that.
That's crazy. That's such a weird mentality. That's interesting.
Um, so yeah, it was like super, super strange. But I guess like on the whole, like, you know, I just decided, you know what, like I got in, and you kind of think about it, right? Like you were willing to go the lengths that you did to get all of that stuff, like to find that base. So you're sort of like living to BTT, and that is like never very healthy.
No.
So I had sort of decided, I was like, right, probably should just take a month out, you know, even after talking to home, which who got away with everything scot free as he usually does, just to take some time out and just go like I knew I was going to come back, but like take a breather and like go spend some time with my family and friends and not talk to paranoid schizos like Jared. Um, you know, get a dose of
Real life, yeah, for
normality in
sure.
my life before I wanted to like head back into it, you know, again. But I guess, you know, I felt the siren call and here I am again.
Of course. Well, you
Um,
can't quit 2B. So
no, it's impossible. I mean, that's a joke, you know.
is it a joke? Yeah,
I don't think people can quit TV, you know.
yeah. I don't know. Hopefully. Anyway, okay, so let's go on to 5C. So obviously by the time you'd griefed Imps 2, 5C was already a thing, so we're going to backtrack a little bit. So what was kind of the, this comes from one of our patrons actually, this question. What was your kind of, what gave you the idea for 5C and the Copenheimer shit?
I guess with 5C, I kind of like, we had this like very sort of, you know, LARPy group, the Guardsmen, and I felt like there were certain people in it, like myself and Pepsi and Herm to a certain extent, who, you know, would like that would be fun to do some like sort of based things on the side that weren't necessarily like in the spirit of the Guardsmen. And so that's like it used to just be a Discord where I used to just share like info that I had like got in my little inciting expeditions or like things that I got leaked to me or whatever. And you know, I think the thing that I was working on at the time was like I think we just like Sleuthy and I had like teamed up and like basically ran Jake the Snake off the server after the whole J bot.
J
So
Balls,
like
yeah.
uh,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
what
because
did
like
you
the
think?
early
Did
thing.
you watch him on the Digcast? Did you watch his episode?
I did. I think Jake has gotten. I used to really dislike Jake. Like he used to really dislike me, um, because he talked about how he went viral on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Um, so he did this like kind of sweet. I would say it's a sweet. I thought it was a sweet video where he was like, "Oh, you know, there's this new group called the Guardsmen, and like, not that I want to be a member of it, but I think that's really cool." Blah 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 blah. And so I reached out to him. And I was like, "Hey Jake, saw your video. Do you want to like come in and hang out with us?" And then when other people in the Guardsmen found out that I had invited Jake, they're like, "No, he's the guy that said the N word to that chick on Omegle
Yeah.
and went viral on TikTok." And they were like, "Absolutely not." And I said to Jake, I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry to like, you know, go back on this, but like people don't want you there. I'm sorry about that. Like probably shouldn't have asked you." And then he like went, "Why?" And I went like, "Because of the video." And he like went, "What video?" And I linked it to him, and he went absolutely ballistic.
Oh,
And
he
that was
didn't
like
know
the
about it.
no, he did know about it. He just like completely spoke out about it.
Right.
Um, and that he wasn't allowed in and blah blah blah. And I had actually offered him sort of like, you know, let's bury the hatchet. Like we don't need to be friends. Blah blah blah. And he's like, "No, fuck you. I'm gonna fuck with you." Blah blah
You've
blah.
betrayed me.
So it
Yeah.
was kind of like, well, it was kind of like he's like, "It's on, motherfucker." And I was like, "Okay." Um, and after the you know him exposing himself online like 5 times or 6 times or whatever it was, Sleuthy was after him. Never heard of Sleuthy. And then like me and Pepsi Boy and a few other people just started going after him really hard. Like we turned all of his friends against him. We had all of his coords to all of his bases, like even the ones that like ate 12 million out and destroyed them all. I crystalled him at one point, and I don't PvP. Like, all of his stashes were gone. Like, he left the server and like only came back like fairly recently, right? So we were looking more things to do. So we ended up like inciting the Republic, which is Bartholomew's group, because he would like, I don't know, he just kind of annoyed me, and he would like misgender Kenzie, and would like spread dumb rumors that like Future was backdoored and like whatever. And I was like, that's somebody who needs their base blown up. So it had started as that, and then we had like Joey's block game Jerusalem that we got from Jared, and sort of Ox and Baba J were in the Discord at the time, and they're like, "Oh, no, you probably shouldn't grief that. That base has a lot of people at it that we're friends with," and so we didn't grief that base, or steal from it or anything like that. Also, a thing I regret back on it, but it did nothing for me. It did lots of things for other people.
So when did the whole griefing private server start?
So we had been inciting Beardler for a while, because we thought we knew he was back, and I knew that there was some unresolved business like between him and Kane's Law and Fit and Alpha, just to name a few people, for the Bodekin and what was the other base? It was the original Block Game Mecca, right? Yeah,
original. Is there another one?
Oh, I mean, like Block Game Jerusalem, and then
right, yeah, okay,
before that, Block Game Mecca, right? Yeah. And so, you know, that whole operation was like Zetrax and I just like following them around, and like poor Zetrax had to like base with these guys for like 4 months, and like they kept getting paranoid and moving it around, and then like Beardler, who obviously had stolen the items from the collectibles from that base, had told this like cock and bull story that like it was actually some no-name that has only logged into the server like 3 times actually stole the items off him, and he didn't have them. It actually turns out to be his alt, and it's been seen online recently. Then Osmobite, Steampunk, I think, had the coords to where they were going to build the new museum with all the stolen shit recently. So thank you, whoever outed him, because we could have had that too. But and so we had gone and grief, like we had planned this huge elaborate grief. It was going to do a video. Everyone was fucking down, like old friends coming back to like fuck him over, right? And sort of like the night before, myself and Drathrader had decided that we were going to go and steal the stash from the Builder's Haven base, like just before the grief. I think it was like a couple of hours before. And so we're like moving, we're purling it all away, and then Drath is like freaking out his way, just fucking saw someone fly over me. And that person was Rfresh 2, and then all of a sudden Alpha Computer comes into render, and we basically were at the stash, like we had like 2 dirtbags thinking alike, stealing the same stash, and it's like and I got a message from him like 6 months ago, because I think he's busy doing college stuff at the moment, or working or something, and he's like, "Dude, do you remember like when we were both stealing the same stash?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "I fucking love that." You know, like it was just such a great moment of like, you know, great minds thinking alike, right? And and that's how I got hooked up with Rfresh. And so like basically everybody that was involved in that grief, whether they'd been like the original 55C people, ended up becoming members of Fith Column, because we all had such a good time doing that. And so I gained like Rfresh and Draft, because Joey Coconut was originally going to come, but then he was being a piece of shit and like literally calling me out for inciting and griefing, yet planning to like be part of the inciting and griefing of Beardler.
So you used to be friends with Joey Coconut then, before this?
Yeah, we used to be quite good friends. Okay. Until I found out that he was a hypocrite cuck. So,
right.
Yeah, so one of the things that actually used to happen in Team Catgirl, which was like Security's group, is they had like some like little program, like command line program they'd run and scan different like IP addresses, and they would like log in and we'd grief these servers. And I was like, oh, it would be good to just like grief some SMPs again. And I was like thinking about how to write a tool, and I wrote a super simple version of it, and then I just like got people in VC and we started griefing. Our fresh got like really interested in it. It's like, if we could do this, we could do this a lot faster. And so we were like, okay. And it just became this like thing that we were doing. Like we wrote the server software, so it's got like an active scanner which actively scans the internet, and then like a passive updater, which like tells us what servers in the database are online and who's playing on them right now, what version are they running.
Do they
And
check
it was
for
just like lots of
whitelists?
things to. Yeah, yeah. Check for whitelists. That's kind of off at the moment because of the Microsoft migration, but working on getting that back up. So check for whitelists. It checked for like, are they running Forge or Fabric or Vanilla? What version of the game are they running? And even like what versions. Like we got ways of like very quickly testing what protocols that they support, so you can find out like what protocol a server will accept, and what servers look like sort of pay to win servers versus more vanilla servers. Um, Search by a particular language, how many players are on the server, like if people are online or offline. We've even got some alerting stuff, so you can tell if certain people are coming online, are likely to come online. The newest thing that we've got in Copenhagen is like literally this thing that uses the Twitch public API to like find players who are currently like streaming on Twitch, and then it looks them up. Like it will crop down on the bottom left-hand corner, find a chat, extract people who player names that are chatting on that server, look them up in Copenhagen, and then like give us the IP address and
Oh,
go
that's
and
amazing.
troll them. Yeah, you should actually join us for that one day. It's actually we were doing that just before the DigCast, and it's the level of cope is just astronomical. And plus, like you're having like a live interaction with people, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
always like really fun.
yeah. The live
Um,
cope.
yeah, the live cope, and then we've been able to do some like really funny things. So like, it actually turns out that um, I think one of the funniest things that we did was like the whole Jeb grief thing, and so like finding Jeb server, griefing Jeb. Um, and I think um, I think the funniest part about that was probably like Bezos' level of gaslighting that he did like on Twitter against Mojang. So like Mojang were like in this like people were just messaging after the Fit video went out. People were messaging like Jeb and all these Minecraft developers and emailing them, blah blah blah. They're denying that it's that it was his server. And Bezos is like sitting there like the puppet master on the Fith Column Twitter account, using those like anti-abuse moderation tools to silence the people who thought it was fake, and then turning around all the Mojang messaging about how like it was fake, to be like, of course they will say it's fake because their developer got screwed up by their shitty security in their game. And then like a week later, after that video came out, they ended up putting a feature into the game so that you could hide whether or not a player was visible in the server ping. So like when you go to the server listing in your launcher, in your game, you can like kind of hover over it and see who's
Yeah.
online. You can hide yourself from that. And then we're using that, pointing to that and going like, of course, we're lying about it because they just added this feature. Why do you think they would do that? So it was just like this really great like opportunity we had where we were like trolling and gaslighting the creators of the game, got a feature added to the game to try and prevent us from this us doing it, and then gaslighting the entire Minecraft community into believing what they wanted to believe about it.
Because it wasn't actually Jeb,
Um,
right? It was just some random guy with a fucking name change.
well, it could. Well, to this day, we don't know if it was Jeb.
Right, okay. But chances are, it probably wasn't.
I mean, there's a good chance it could be Jeb.
Is there a good chance?
Like,
I mean, there's a minute possibility.
prove it wasn't, and all of the information saying that it wasn't Jeb out there is probably just a Mojang psyop.
Right, yeah, it's Mojang on damage control, huh?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
Mojang
either
on
way, it
damage
made for a
control.
great story, and it's kind of what made the Fit video so, successful, right? So, I mean, was that whole thing like planned? Did you plan on like finding some relevant figure, killing him in game, then giving it to Fit and getting a video out of it? Was that all kind of part of the plan, or did it just happen like that?
No, it just kind of happened. It just kind of happened, and he Fit obviously like he was in the private. He's in the Fith Column private Discord. It has been for like years now, and knew that we were creating this like we're creating Copenhagen and wanted to do a story on it, and sort of like an opportunity through that to do a story. So I think it's pretty cool. I mean, we built it. Like he's not wrong. Like we part of it is like we get to grief as many like bases as we want whenever we want. But like part of it is he's absolutely correct. Like parts of 2B2D were getting boring for us. This was at a very low. I think the activity on the server was lower than it is now when that was all happening immediately after NoCom. So it was kind of good fun. But the other thing that is kind of wild is like we decided like one weekend we just grief Japanese servers because they were, I mentioned that they were like really well built and really, really large. And we logged into this server and it was just after the invasion of the Ukraine by Russia. And so I had changed my alt skin to the Ukrainian flag, and we were going, and I think we had just run out of Russian servers to grief. So we had griefed every Russian server, and we had these like withers that were like Slavic Ukraine in acrylic. We would just bomb them and then build like a gigantic Ukrainian flag over the ruins of their base.
That's amazing.
And it was fucking awesome. And so I still had this like keybind that would like spam free Ukraine, Slava Ukraine, and join this Japanese server. And I'm like lava casting and destroying this base, and all these people are like in Japanese, like obviously freaking out. You could tell like that they're getting a bit panicked. And I got banned, and I thought nothing about it. But it turned out it was like it was the YouTube. It was basically like the dream of Japan, right?
Well,
It's
like
got
the
like
Dream
millions
SMP.
of yeah. It was like the Dream SMP, but like the Japanese sort of equivalent. It's called 50-person craft,
Oh.
and literally they have like a fandom where they like write up like these elaborate histories of like everybody who's ever been on the YouTube thing, on the YouTube series, etc., etc. And what it turned out, and someone Nairap, who's one of the old pre-juners, he lives in Japan, and he sent me this link because he was like searching for us or something, and discovered that like we had ended the season of their SMP like early because we had come in and decimated it. And he did this whole like video of like how like how the SMP had to end early because Orsond came on and it was like free Ukraine and a bunch of stuff I don't understand. So I started replying to all the comments and got Nairab to like translate them all, like the English comments into Japanese. And so he was learning how to speak Japanese troll, and like I was like learning how to troll Japanese people. And then he ended up doing a follow-up video like 2 months later where he was like really mad and going through like, how like he thought I was a piece of shit, and I had replied to him on Twitter going like, I love 50-person craft, can I join the next season? Just trolling him. So I can legitimately say like Bezo, myself, and Maxi Taxi are huge in Japan.
That's crazy.
Like we have fans. Like there was like a one of their episodes they did recently. They had like an in-game cosplay contest, and some Japanese kid had dressed up as like the Ukrainian Orsond and was like cosplaying as me.
So you're basically
Like,
the
it's actually-
Popbob of Japan SMP server.
Yes, I'm Popbob of Japan.
Wait, so you're telling me one of the biggest SMP YouTube servers in Japan didn't have a whitelist and it didn't have any
You know
backups?
what? Nope, and we fucked it.
Jesus Christ, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's so good. So there's a bit of a campaign at the moment. Like we're trying to track down like where they play and like where his server is. His name's Kun. So we've figured out where Kun is. We've got his server IP. We're ready to go. We're waiting for the next few days, and we're gonna make.
I mean, how do you circumvent the whitelist?
There's too many people that play on it. Like when he invites them, so I think it's just lazy adminship.
Oh,
so
so
they
he doesn't
rely
have
on the
enough
IP being. No.
Right. Okay.
So we'll be back. We'll be back
for season 2. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
I
how
mean,
has
what was even weirder is that when we were out griefing using Copenhagen, we would run into rival Copenhagen groups griefing the same servers.
Oh right, okay.
There's
So
like
there's
this
multiple.
whole like little cottage industry of like people who do that.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, I was
like,
doing it back in 2019 with Paralusion and a team called Team Luctus, and even back then, I think we went on servers and there were already signs from like this other group that were like "get fucked, get fucked." It's like, yeah, it's been going on for a while, clearly, but I mean, it's just got big recently. I mean, you guys kind of brought it to the mainstream with Fith.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably have the biggest database now, something like 10 or 12 million users tracked,
Yeah.
I can actually really check that.
Almost
to mute
900k 900k servers, I think, tracked, and I think about 200,000 online, and we check every 20 minutes.
Jesus, yeah, I mean, you've got the fucking infrastructure and shit all down to a T. I mean, back in the day, we just go on like Shodan.io and just search for Minecraft servers.
I mean, people used to say
primitive.
that we like, is Copenhagen just a Shodan skid? Like that was a early,
Yeah. Okay, so how's kind of 5C evolved during its time? Because obviously you're clearly still doing server raiding, but now you're also doing a lot of 2B stuff. You know, you had your massive kind of parade against Joey Coconut. That was like your big video. Can you explain that drama, actually, the whole Joey Coconut thing? Like, where does that like
Guardsman,
beef stem from?
So it's basically from the block game. Oh my god, it's Jesus. Okay, I'm gonna like look the other way in my room so I don't have to see what's on my screen at the moment. So okay, so I deserve this. Yeah, basically, you know, block game Jerusalem. I had the coords to it. I asked them from. I got them off of Jared. I decided not to grief it. Joey and I became friends. He then later became one of the distinguished leaders of the Guardsmen. And then I felt bad, and I let him know that I had the coords. And if you go onto the archive, there's actually like an encrypted sign on the signboard, which is from me. So I knew where it was. I didn't leak the base. I thought it was all cool. We built Whitehaven. Imps went down, and then Joey basically decided he didn't want anything to do with me. And then when I asked him why, it was like, because I inside in grief and blah, 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 blah. And then not knowing much more about Joey, I actually looked into his history, and it actually turns out he had to leave the server, I think, in 2017, because he was involved in this like Democratic Republic group where him and Galvatron basically like incited a whole bunch of groups, got their people in control of those groups, griefed their bases, and like took control of, you know what I mean? Like it's like that same story, right?
Right.
And so when I tried to come back from, I went on my break for a month, and I tried to come back, I was like, you know, I'm like done. I was talking to him. I'm like done. I don't want to be a distinguished member of the Guardsmen. I just like to be a regular member of the group and not have any of the leadership responsibilities. And I think like if people feel upset about my actions, that's probably more appropriate. And then like basically Joey blocked my return to the group personally for months and months and months. until Herm sort of like got involved and invited me back. And then Joey wrote this like "We the Active Guardsmen" meme, which you've probably seen before. We can get you a screenshot of it. And took a whole bunch of people who were like no names and left the Guardsmen. And that was all about like basically Joey trying to get his, like Joey had brought a bunch of people, done what he usually did. We did with Democratic Republic, has done with the Block Game group that made Block Game Mecca, Block Game Jerusalem. What he would do is he would invite all of his friends in and then like get his friends into leadership positions and then like take control of the group. So like there's a bit of a joke, like if you invite Joey to your base, like soon he'll be vetting who is on the guest list. Like he's that kind of person. So he, and there was a lot of drama about it. And I think like for some of the friends that I had in the Guardsmen, like it took a really long time for like relationships to be healed. And I felt that Joey had taken the group away from me, right? Which I don't think I deserved. But then by stacking it full of his people, he kind of pushed the older members out. They either stopped playing or started playing with other people. And so he single-handedly destroyed that group, in my view. And there's like many other Guardsmen that would agree with that statement. And when it comes down to it, it was just him moralizing about my actions when he was not only guilty of having done the exact same thing in the past, like he was actively involved. Like this is like how fucking like, you know, how fucking like best this guy's like worldview is. He was literally, when I came back, that's when we were going to do the Beardley grief, and he was still like a million years on, like he was still like 1,000,000,000% like on board with screwing over Beardler and ruining his base and stealing his stash and like that whole incident op that we had originally had. He still wanted to do that. So for me, it was like, this guy is like, you know, a very thinly veiled, power-hungry hypocrite. And
right. So if I were to ask Joey Coconut what he thought of Orsond, what do you think he'd say?
I think he'd just say that Orson's like is what he would say when anyone has asked him about. It's like Orson's a really sad individual who griefs children's Minecraft servers.
But why does he think that? Say. Like, why does he have such a low opinion of you?
I don't think he likes being called on his bullshit. I don't think he likes being called on his bullshit at all. He's like quite a sanctimonious, stubborn, proud person. So, you know, I thought, right, I'm going to go for him, and I'm going to get, you know, if he's taken, basically, he took the Guardsman from me, right? So my mission is to take everything from him.
Oh, okay, all right. So that's the kind of battle, yeah.
And that's and basically, until he quits, there will be no peace, no quarter. Like honestly, and I think like we've been keeping score. We're up to like, I think it's like he's gotten 2 of our bases, and I've gotten 16 of his.
Wow. Okay.
16
Quite the 16. Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, and more to come. More to come. I mean, like his group, he's basically stopped. It's interesting because like the original Astral Order was like Galvatron's group, which then Joey stacked with his people, and now Joey runs it, not Galvatron. It's kind of, anyway. There's lots of that.
I was in the original
Astral
Order. I don't know if you knew, but yeah.
I heard about that. Yeah, you and Imps, right?
Yeah, Imps was a council member.
Yeah,
and it was my first group I ever joined. And yeah, it was interesting. I mean, even back then, it was kind of, we got kicked for this. Well, I got kicked. He left because he wanted to defend me, but I got kicked for the same reason I'm getting kicked from like things like the Masons nowadays. Is because I kind of pissed off the wrong people, and they weren't happy to take me in as a general person because I did some things, and they're like, oh no, okay, he's bad now, get rid of him. Kind of like
bad
that.
Now, yeah.
But yeah, it's funny.
Joey, I will continue taking everything from him. I mean, like the group is not recruiting anymore, as far as I can see. Like they have a private Discord. Um, Obviously, Steampunk was feeding us information as well as BSB information. So we were getting the Astral stuff. BSB was getting the Don Fura stuff. And we got a couple of Don Fura things along the way, which is pretty funny. But like if he thinks that he can split his public Discord up into like 4 groups, like literally copying Deloaded's like security protocols for his base, for his group, and he can apply that and think that that's going to keep that group safe. He should be doing that to the private Discord because it's not just Steampunk that's in there. And I'll say this to Joey personally. When he finds out the people that have betrayed him for very similar reasons that I have listed on this podcast, it is going to chill his soul. Absolutely chill his soul. And I'm looking forward to that day. Hopefully not soon, because we're having a lot of fun.
Damn, we're getting deep here. Okay, there's some serious fucking drama between you two. Well, fuck, I'm not going to get involved in that. You guys do you. Yeah.
When there's that much blood under the bridge now, you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
yeah.
It's either he quits or you quit, right?
That's exactly right.
Fair enough. Okay, so moving on to kind of like general 2B2T, you seem to have quite a few. You seem to have quite a lot to say when it comes to the 2B2T community and sort of the problems within it. So could you give us like what are the like biggest problems within the 2B community in like 2022 that you have, and also do you think that things used to be better perhaps?
I think like if you have like a much larger community, like active community is a lot smaller. Like a lot of people play like Discord XE more than they play like Minecraft XE in the community. I would say right now. I would say the biggest problem, and the 2 biggest problems that really concern me are like actual safety issues in the game. So it's kids being preyed upon by adults, and kids being kids and not protecting their identities or their personal information or their personal photos online, and kids doxing each other, people doxing each other, people putting each other in like actually serious danger, like swatting and doxing. So like guys, like it's don't take it outside of the game. Like do the Jared 2013 greatest hits without the pizza, right? And the swatting. Like I think like people take the game way too seriously in a lot of ways, and they take it outside of the game, and that's sort of like where it becomes a problem. And I feel like like there's things that there have been multiple occasions where people, like younger players in the community, have like come to me and they go, Orsond, I don't know what to do because this person is saying that if I don't send them like pictures of my thighs or like lewd pictures, that they're going to turn up at my house IRL and they have my address and they're going to hurt me.
Fucking hell. And
yeah, it's fucking rough. And like if you're listening to me, you're like going like, oh, Orson's just having a spray against the SpawnMasons for meeting up with a minor. Like that's the position that I'm coming from. It's not because I hate the SpawnMasons, dude. It's like I'm genuinely really like I have ran into so many situations where like I am genuinely concerned for people's safety and well-being. Like it's to the point that like Slap and Bad Kids and I ended up compiling a massive Google Drive where people were like obviously grooming and obviously conducting themselves in like, whether this be adults or young adults. And this file, I believe he took down to his local FBI office and gave it to them. And
Oh,
there are
really?
certain people in the community, yeah, there are certain people in the community that, surprise, surprise, aren't members of the community anymore because of that.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy to be fair.
he himself, I believe, like someone was taking photos of trying to, I think it was not in a 2B community, it was like a 3B or something community, was like, um, somehow had tracked him down IRL and was like sending him pictures of his like wife and his child, like going shopping or something. Like, there are some really weird people out there, and this community borders on some like crazy, scary communities, and you really need to like watch out for yourself and like watch out for your friends. I would say that that's the biggest challenge with this community. Like, how long can we have an anarchy environment in the way that we have it, and an anonymous one, before Discord or before Microsoft take action to protect children in the game? And you can kind of see it with their like chat reporting thing that they've got in 119. They're sort of playing lip service to it, but ultimately, probably the better thing to do is not like allow people to, report each other for saying slurs and shit. Is probably to split, you know, 18 plus play off from multiplayer off from children's multiplayer.
But so much of the
Would
shit just
probably be
happens
the
off of the game. Like it's all it's on Discord to kind of moderate this shit because it all happens, outside of Minecraft.exe, right?
like there was a systematic problem at Discord where like one of their senior people was running like one of these baby fur servers, which is kind of like where they like fantasize about being like furry children or like being with furry children. And so like I don't believe that there's a company, and like this was well known for like a long time. They don't take that seriously. And I know people who have been like victims of abuse online who tried to report these things from Discord. These accounts don't get termed yet. You know, people get termed all the time for lots of stupid reasons. Like I got termed last week because I shared a Minecraft server ID in a
Oh yeah.
Discord, and someone reported it as theirs, right? Yet you can't get past like in any sort of like actual real safety concern where people's like a child's nude photos are being shared online. You can't get that past them. There's a sort of and they're back on an alt anyway. Within
Yeah.
the moment they get termed.
I mean, that's just
So
a problem with the
that's
internet in general, to be fair. I mean, obviously, 2B attracts, kids, and it attracts, weird people just from the fact that it's an anarchy community. But, and in any community, shit like this goes on. In any Discord community that's, over a year old, if you go in there and fucking ask about it, chances are they would have experienced some drama like that in the past. It's just unfortunately how the internet works.
Yeah, no, and that's right, and that happened in like I was told about like the R Pokemon, like the Pokemon Reddit Discord, where like kids were like, in order to get shiny Pokemon, like kids were asked by adults to like send lewd photos of themselves to get those shiny Pokemon, like. But the thing that like disgusts me about like, 2B is that like, and you covered this in Barky's interview. People were allowed back into the community and back into Discords after they were legitimately, and I have a problem with like people that I know for allowing certain people back into like our spaces, right?
Yeah.
Where they were literally in 2B2T chat selling a 15-year-old or 14-year-old girl's nudes, and Housemaster does nothing about it. Discord does.
I mean, what can
about
Housemaster
it.
do? What would you say House could do about it?
I have emailed Housemaster personally multiple times, like half a dozen times, whenever this has happened, and these people never get prior banned, even with the fucking evidence right in front of me.
Huh.
Yeah, people like Frank or like Foreskin will get prior banned for like spamming in chat or. Walden in chat or whatever it is, right?
Rules.
And so there's something wrong with the community, and I think like in that sense, like they're allowed back into like people that we know, allow them back into those spaces, like everything's fine. Yet literally they have done something like super illegal, but also super morally heinous.
Fucked, yeah.
And that's the problem. So like what I would say, like if you're playing on 2B2T and for the first time, don't share your personal info. Certainly don't send photos of yourself to other people, whether they're lewd ones or not. And remember, at the end of the day, it's a game, and certainly don't get involved in doxing people. Do not share people's docs. Don't put other people in danger, because you don't want to be there in their shoes. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want that to happen to you. Like, that's sort of like, you can be the biggest shithead in game, but like on those aspects, like they go outside of game, they're no longer, none of that is fun, right? None of that is fun. Don't go there. I think it's just it's a really, really terrible thing. So, I mean, like that's a really heavy thing to talk about, but I think it definitely needs to be said. And particularly, like, I think it frames, you know, whether it's Jake or questioning the Masons if they did this or that. I think that like kind of frames like, you know, there are limit. I think my worldview, right, of like how I play this game and how I involve myself in the community, that there is limits to that freedom, and if you, I think it's, for some people, it's easy to cross those lines and sort of not come back to reality. But I think, all in all, I think the community, like people say like, oh, it's so awesome in, you know, 2019 and so busy with so many people on, and now queue is really low. I actually kind of like it. It's kind of like the people who are here are like the long-termers. So you kind of like building your friendships and relationships that, you know, will continue. Like as soon as that server updates, I bet BSB is, you know, looking forward to that as much as 5C.
For sure,
like
yeah.
the new influx of players, the new bases, the new exploits, the hopefully new dupe exploits, like is going to give us a lot more stuff to play with in the way that we like to play the game, but it's also going to give other people more stuff in the way that they like to play the game. So I think, you know, maybe we're in the antebellum, like we're kind of like between two wars at the moment. Things kind of like, you know, things kind of feel very comfortable at the moment, but
for sure.
in some sense, but like this, like the server will update. It will update. It will have to update, like in order for him to, like, for the company that's behind the Housemaster identity to get revenue from this community. So it will happen, and when it does happen, I think the people here are it's going to be weird for the people that are here, because, you know, going to be joining, you know, the new people have been joining and going, oh, I've seen that person in this video or on the DigCast or like on the Dr. N Pickles or whatever it is going to be. And so there's going to be that new generation of people coming through. So that's exciting and positive.
For sure.
And I hope to grief your base someday.
You do. So you have high hopes for the future for 2B then?
Oh yeah, you know, it'll be fine. It's been here a long time. The server's not dead, and it's been here for a lot longer than most people have played. So
it's been here a lot longer than some people have been alive.
Correct. And some players have been alive.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's strange to say.
Yeah, Ooflux, if you're out there, hi.
Ooflux. No, we love you, Ooflux. Okay, well fucking said, man. I think that's all in terms of the serious questions. Now, let's move on to a new segment we have, which is the Patreon questions, which is where the lovely members of the DigCast Patreon get to submit questions to be asked by yours truly. And the first one comes from Franknificent, and this is a very important question, according to him. Do you think Bucky made Ghost Mafia do it?
No, I don't think he made Ghost Mafia do anything.
Okay, good. And now the next one from Vert. This is a tricky one. I can't believe I'm reading this, but if you were in a room with Solar, Ghost Mafia, and Hammer, who would you bum?
Holy shit. Next question.
And that's all for the Patreon questions.
Whoa. Holy fuck. Holy fuck.
They don't hold back. They don't hold back.
No.
Yeah.
it's just like a little snapshot of 2v2 chat in those questions.
It is. Well, I find it quite entertaining. But Orsond, this was incredibly a very good interview. You're a really good talker. It was easy on my part because I just kind of had to sit back and listen. The people in the fucking studio went autistic today. It's been repaired a little bit, but it was AIDS earlier. There's a point in time where someone fucking like chunk kicked or like had some kick exploit. So I'm gonna have to like superpose footage onto that so it doesn't look autistic. There are also lots of parrots flying around at some point, and yeah, I'm kicked again. Nice. Well,
we're breaking right now.
Yeah, well, that's it, boys. I hope you enjoyed this interview. If so, please subscribe. Let us know how you thought of it in the comments. And yeah, we'll see you hopefully next week. Oh yeah, sorry for not uploading last week. I was just busy all weekend. So yeah, we've got an interesting one coming up next. So hope you're ready for that.
And I'll be seeing you soon.
Yes. Goodbye, Orsond. Thanks for coming on. Okay.
Bye.
See you, boys.